David Shabazz.
That's right, folks. Canine Corral for all your dog daycare and overnight care. Call 631-549-1544. That's 631-549-1544.
Jimmy, I gotta take a dump.
What?
No, I mean I need a dumpster.
Well, for all those needs, you need to call Big V Dumpster Rental, Long Island, New York, 631-900-DUMP. Elm Logistics for all your logistic needs. Call 631-299-3595. That's 631-299-3595. Elm Global Logistics. Pride, performance, and partnerships.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's number one pro wrestling broadcast, Monte and Pharaoh, only seen here out of Indie Music TV, straight out of Ronkonkoma, Long Island. So, David, welcome aboard. Thank you for joining us. We're sorry for that long rant, but like I told you, it caught us at a really, really bad time that affects, again, we're very excited to have you on, and we wanted to have a huge audience to promote this book, and, we're going to do the best we can here, sir, but
I hope
thank
we
you.
haven't offended you, sir. You're not offended?
Thank you. Oh, not at all. I'm still very happy to be on the show, and I'm glad that I appreciate the fact that you guys give a platform to people like me to be on the show, and it's just I hate what happened, but I think I think we can build it back up.
Well, I hope so.
Appreciate it.
So, David,
Thank you.
Pro Wrestling's Black World Champions. Please tell the fans out there why this book.
Well, it's sort of a long story. It's really kind of touchy and personal, but I'll try not to get too slobbish, if you will, with this. It's a book that came out of my desire to pay tribute to my brother. My brother Julian. You guys may know him, may be familiar with his work. He wrote the Black Stars of Professional Wrestling back in 1999, and it was on its third edition that was just published in 2019. My brother passed away in June of 2020, and he was dealing with kidney issues, and that's something that he was just privately dealing with. That it wasn't something that he told anybody. He was constantly working and doing interviews, and but yeah, so he passed in 2020, and sort of going through his things as typical when that happens. I found this publication. It's a small saddle stitched 43-page pamphlet, booklet, if you will, and it's Pro Wrestling's Black World Champions. And he published this back in 2009. And so when I found it, and I was like, oh, wow, this would be a good opportunity for me, because actually when he had passed, some people were saying that I think they were trying to nudge me on. They were saying somebody needs to continue his legacy, and so I'm sure they were trying to throw those points at me to do that. And so that's really how it came about. And when I found this publication, a good way to just pay a tribute to my brother, I said, well, there's still very few wrestlers of African descent that have held the world heavyweight title, a single titles holder. And that's what the premise of the book is really about. And that's why even mine is not as large, because many pages, because it's just trying to focus on those few African-American wrestlers who were the world heavyweight champion in one of the major federations.
So, David, the first thing I thought about was Both you and your brother, did you both grow up wrestling fans, or just your brother?
Absolutely. We both grew up. I mean, it's big and throughout my household. So the family, my mom, my dad, grandmother, everybody were huge wrestling fans.
So here's the question for you. I always remembered the beginning of pro wrestling when I was younger. It always seemed like a white guy's deal. How does an African American like fall in love with wrestling when most of the heroes are white guys?
Well, from South Carolina, is where I'm from, and everybody sort of watched wrestling where we were from. I mean, you kind of grew up, you watched wrestling, you watched NASCAR. I mean, regardless of your race, and as well as football and basketball and the main sports, it was just one of those things. So, I mean, Georgia Championship Wrestling, Mid-Atlantic, that was on TV all the time. So, I mean, we just grew up watching it.
So when Ron Simmons finally wins the WCW title, right? Mm-hmm. How huge was that for your family, or was it huge at all? It didn't matter.
It really didn't matter. I mean, it was great at the time, but we watched him and it was like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's a good thing that happened, but it wasn't like it wasn't anything like a celebration of a Barack Obama. Yay, we got a black president. It wasn't. Right. It wasn't anything on that level.
It's wrestling,
but yeah,
right?
I mean, we were happy that he won the belt. Yeah.
Right. That's what. Hello, all our detractors. It's wrestling. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm sorry.
My God.
I just had to. How difficult was it writing this book, considering your brother had dabbled in this? Was it easy for you, or?
It was very difficult because I wanted to kind of stay within the spirit that he wrote the original book.
Sure.
So trying to put myself in his frame of mind and really following this one as an example. And this book, to give a little background, his original book came from an article that he wrote for Kayfabe magazine on the Black World Champions. And I knew about this publication, but I didn't know a lot about it because it was really more of a personal project for him that he wrote with his son. Okay. He wrote the book and he allowed his son to create this cover. And cool. I think it was just a father trying to help his son was like 12 years old or something at the time. So it really wasn't that spectacular of a cover, but this is a father trying to help his son. And so he expanded that article into that publication. And so I was really, it's hard when you're trying to stay within the same spirit that he wrote the article and then expand it into a book. And so I think there were maybe around 12 or 13 wrestlers in his, and mine has 21. So within that time, I thought that, yeah, this is a good time to update it because a few more people have actually held the world title. So right. I thought it was good to do this.
Cool. Question, I'm going to throw it out there. Why not? Were you a fan of Hulk Hogan growing up? And if so, did you continue to be one after he was illegally, recorded?
Yes. And
interesting.
Yes.
Why? Why'd you continue?
And I'm assuming you're talking about the scandal with the steroids and all of that, or
some other things that he might have said about his daughter dating a basketball player. I'm not sure if I would think you were aware of all of that.
Oh,
he's not aware of all of that?
No,
it's not.
Are you serious? No, Hulk Hogan got in all sorts of trouble because he was caught on a recording saying that, why is my daughter got to date this, blah, blah, blah. He was referring to the color of skin. He was like, I'd rather have her date a wealthy basketball player or something than this scumbag. It was something like that. And of course, it sounds terrible. So, of course, after that, Hogan, I was just curious if you remained a fan of Hogan after the racist shit came out.
Yeah, I did. I wasn't exactly familiar with it, but yeah, I know there were instances of him using the N-word, and that's very offensive, and I certainly don't support that.
Right.
But
But it's wrestling?
I kind of separate the person from those kinds of things. He was
Okay. I was just curious.
All right, so you got a lot of great names in here. I want you to tell me your feelings about some of the wrestlers in your book and tell me what your thoughts are on them. We discussed Ron Simmons. How about Jacqueline?
excellent performer. She's actually someone who I'd put in the top 5 of all time of the black wrestlers. I really respected her as a performer. I respected her as someone who wanted to wrestle with the men. She didn't want to just fight the women, and she would fight anybody. I love that determination about her, and the focus I think she was trying to bring to the women, the female wrestlers, who's always been somewhat marginalized and made into eye candy. And even, they had her being a little eye candy at some point. But yeah, I think I really have the greatest respect for her because she was one of those who was a real genuine wrestler.
Oh, yeah.
Although she is a very beautiful woman, and I understand that there's nothing wrong with using what you have, but she wanted people to focus on her talent, and she would wrestle with the men. And so I really respect her a lot for that.
All right, here's one a little bit suspect, but you can defend it.
I'm confused.
The Rock.
I thought he's Samoan. What's going? What is he? Oh, well, Rocky. Okay.
Right, Samoan
so
and
you feel
black.
strongly both ways.
But still, suspect.
I don't.
Thoughts?
Yeah, that's something that always seems to come up, and I think people
like the way you put that.
Want you to be number one. The man himself has no control over the way he was born.
Right.
He can't control that. And to ask him to which side do you want to accept, your mother's side or your father's side, that's not fair to him to do that.
No, it's really not.
And people want him to be a Samoan. And I've heard some people say, well, he declared himself more Samoan when he put the tattoos on.
Oh,
well, I mean, just because he's not wearing any African colors, most black Americans who have both black parents don't go around wearing dashikis and African colors to say, I'm a 100% black man.
Hey, good point.
They don't do that either. So it doesn't mean that he's picking one over the other. And personally, if you ask him, what type of champion are you? An African-American champion? Are you a Samoan champion? His answer would probably be what he's always said. I'm the people's champion.
There you go.
Very good.
That's excellent.
All
Or
right.
I would say it doesn't matter what kind of champion I am. It doesn't matter.
A favorite, very good. A favorite of mine, Booker T.
Five-time.
5 times.
Yes.
5 times.
Yes.
One more. 5
Booker
times.
T is wonderful, phenomenal person.
What a talent.
And
Oh, yeah.
I can probably get away with saying this, but I know with your show, you wouldn't mind me saying it anyway.
Uh-oh. What's
There was a large focus being put on African-American wrestlers in the 90s. And my brother Julian was on BET Tonight with Tavis Smiley, that show in probably around 92 or something like that. And WCW, the producers, somehow they contacted WCW, and I don't know the backstory, but I'm sure they probably contacted Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon did not want to send any of his wrestlers. So WCW sent Booker T, his now wife Charmel, and Ernest the Cat Miller on that show with my brother Julian. And that show must have aired, I don't remember exactly, but the show must have aired on like a Thursday or something like that. And that next Monday, Booker T became champion.
there you go. Now Vince McMahon has
I
taken
don't know
some
if there's
heat.
a correlation,
That's a
but
great, yeah,
Could be.
great story.
I mean, it's funny. Vince McMahon had taken some heat in the past for stereotyping certain wrestlers and putting them in, their cultural character, if you will. Let's not
Right.
forget that WCW, once upon a time, there's a schmuck on YouTube named Vince Russo who decided to call Booker T, G.I. Bro. G.I. Bro. Any thoughts when you saw
Yeah.
Booker T being booked as G.I. Bro?
yeah, I think that
You vomit in your mouth a little bit when you saw that?
it was definitely offensive, and I think it actually I think that actually goes back to, I don't know, but I think that was actually before Russo. I believe
I
he
think that was Russo.
had that name when he was in when he was just coming into the business out of Houston or wherever.
Okay.
And I think that's where that G.I. Bro character came from, and didn't last long.
Well, I remember seeing G.I. Bro appear in the dying days of WCW. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was
So
a
he tried
Russo.
to take him back to that offensive character.
Yeah. And meanwhile, just a few short months later, Vince McMahon gets a hold of Booker T, and we know what he did with him. So,
All right, we
Yeah.
got here. Now, I'm not a huge fan of hers, but Jazz.
Jazz, ECW. Yes. Yes.
Yes, Jazz is probably
Similar to
more
Jackie?
prominent, known for her work in ECW.
Similar to Jackie in some ways. Tough as can be. Great in the ring. Fair?
Yes, very similar to Jackie. Yes.
Okay. Mike, can you tell me whether or not, in my opinion, the greatest black wrestler who never held the world title that should have, and as far as I'm concerned, he's one of the all-time greats, is Ernie Ladd in this book?
Ernie Ladd is in the book.
Of
He's
course.
towards the back.
I think Ernie Ladd
There
was
he
the
is.
absolute greatest. I'm sorry. He should have held the belt back in the day. He was fantastic.
Yes.
What about Bobo Brazil?
That's another one, but I felt Ernie was even
Bearcat
higher.
Wright, who are also in this book.
There you go. There you
Yes.
go.
Lot
Mr.
of-
Wrestling
They
Announcer.
were world title holders. Yes.
Yeah.
And Pharaoh, you're right. But Ernie Ladd is in there because he held a version of
Right.
the belt, though it wasn't.
Right.
There was some discrepancy. It wasn't really recognized whether it should be, but
Yep.
because he held the WWA's World Heavyweight title.
Right. Right.
And he is also on my list, number one all time.
Wow.
He's the greatest. I mean, it would have been so unbelievable for him to beat Bruno in 76 or so. I don't think so. Bruno could have won it back. Could have won it back. What's the harm?
Right. But Ladd had so he wasn't the greatest technical wrestler,
Doesn't matter.
but he
Not to
could
me.
perform in the ring,
Yeah.
and he had the mic skills. And that, to me, is what's really necessary. I mean, he wasn't like, hey, I'm going to kick your butt. I mean, that's no mic skill. I mean, Ladd was the perfect he was just the embodiment of what a wrestler should be.
He was an incredible seller, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
He sold punches fantastic, and he didn't have to. He could have been a jerk about it. I'm 6'9". I don't have to sell you a punch. He sold everybody's punches. He was great.
Right.
Here's something that's interesting. You've got Big Daddy V in here,
Oy.
and you're giving him credit
Ugh.
because he won the King of the Ring. How come Big Daddy V's in here?
Well, I'm giving him credit because of that short-lived
Okay.
federation that had Hogan and did have some of the other big name people, but it never really got off the ground and had any television exposure. Right after WCW's demise, was it Extreme Championship Wrestling or something like that?
Well,
they called it.
ECW, sure.
And
Vince
yeah,
Russo
it
was
didn't
kinda
last
dangerous in
long,
the
but
ring,
he
though.
was able to. He held that title, and I thought with the big names that they had in that federation, that it would have had a chance. And Jimmy Hart and Hogan and others, but it just never took off.
I don't remember that.
Not too well. How did you feel the night that Rocky Johnson, were you watching when Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas were the first African Americans to win the World Tag Team Championship? Do you remember that? Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas?
The
was that
Soul
before your
Patrol,
time?
yes, I really enjoyed them. I was young at that time. I was too young to really understand the significance of it.
Okay.
But yeah, I definitely remember those guys, and Tony Atlas in particular, I think, is one of the most underrated African American wrestlers of all time.
I can see that. I mean, we can't believe how well he talks. They never really let him talk much. Boy, can he talk!
Right.
I want to go through the list of the book, but I want to ask you, David, who, in your opinion, is the greatest black wrestler in history?
I've got to say Ernie Ladd. I mean,
I
I would
agree. I actually agree with this.
my top five. I would say Ron Simmons, and a lot of that is due to him having the belt, but it's not. But they don't just give the belt to anybody, so I can't discount his skill.
Can't.
Ron Simmons,
Ernie Ladd,
Booker T,
Tony Atlas,
Jackie Moore, The Rock, and at the top, Ernie Ladd.
Wow, nice. You know what's funny? In my top five, JYD would be in my top five.
JYD. Wow. There's another guy who should have held the belt.
I debated that one. I would really love to put JYD in there. You know, and that's, to give a little background, that's what turned my brother, the wrestling fan, into an author on the Black Stars of Professional Wrestling. JYD's death. We loved the sport so much. When he died, my brother was looking around and was like, there's nothing on him. There's no recognition. These great people who we watch just live and perform and die, and nobody says anything about it. And that is when he first wrote the book. And a lot of people were asking him at the time about questions about racism in wrestling and all. And he was like, well, you know, this book was written out of love. It was written because there was nothing praising the African-American wrestlers. And that's why he wrote that book. And that's really what it's about. It's not really about trying to, you know, talk about the Hogans and the Dusty Rhodes and even somewhat Flair, the John Cenas, these different people who imitate African-American mannerisms and everything in the ring and become popular themselves. Yes, we know that, but that really wasn't what the focus of the book was about. It was really trying to just praise the African-American wrestlers.
ESO says out there.
It
ESO
started
out there
at
says
the death of Junkyard Dog.
Okay. ESO says out there, Butch Reed, right? The Natural or Hacksaw.
Hacksaw Butch Reed.
I was a huge Natural fan.
We were lucky enough to have him in studio before he passed. He was awesome.
I think he's hugely underrated as well.
He is.
Butch Reed was another one who could wrestle and he could talk too. And even it was funny that we used to laugh because my brother and I used to joke about it when they were him and Simmons were doomed. You could tell which one was Butch Reed because Butch was talking even through the mask. He just couldn't keep his mouth shut, and you could always identify him.
Love it.
Hey, what are your thoughts on, if you're familiar with him, I hope you are, New Jack from ECW, who took Extreme Wrestling to a whole nother level. And as far as I'm concerned, is one of the all-time great black wrestlers. I mean, he's a loose cannon. Obviously, he's passed away now. But any thoughts on New Jack?
Yeah. Well, I kind of have to admit personally, I enjoyed ECW. New Jack was kind of violent for me. I didn't really enjoy watching New Jack's matches.
You're not into ECW approach then. That's fair. You don't have to like it.
I did, but it was and New Jack in particular, and God rest his soul. I don't mean to talk anything about it. It's just my personal preference.
Sure.
I thought the music was playing too loud. His music played throughout his match. It was too loud. It was distracting, and some of the things that he did. Taking some of those bumps, and I was like, New Jack, why are you
crazy fuck?
What's the point in all of that? And that's just my personal opinion. I personally did not like him, but that has no that doesn't factor into my rating of who I think is his top performer. New Jack I did like New Jack when what were they, the Gangsters or something?
Right.
He didn't even had a partner.
Him and Mustafa, right. Correct.
I like those two together, and I think New Jack kind of got real extreme when he when he was
Real.
by himself. But
Real extreme.
but yeah, he was a great performer.
Are you pleased with the progress in professional wrestling as far as giving more opportunities to black wrestlers?
I am. I think that it's grown a lot. I think there's more room to go with only 21 people holding the title. But now, I would say a lot of that I'm sort of disappointed on another level, because I was talking about this the other day. I'm disappointed in how Vince McMahon is the king now, so how Vince McMahon, WWE, doesn't really push the African American wrestlers. I'm disappointed to see Kofi Kingston elevated to the world heavyweight champion, and now you've reduced him to a mid-card status.
Right.
Why is Bobby Lashley reduced to mid-card status now? I mean, I don't see Hogan, Flair, I don't see any of those top guys ever being reduced down to now I'm fighting for the United States title and I'm in a meaningless, I shouldn't say meaningless, but, mid-card. They were main event, and they should remain on the main event level, I think.
David, with much respect, I want to disagree with you on this one. We've got different brands, right? Roman Reigns holds both titles.
Currently.
He doesn't really go between the two shows. So Triple H is in charge now, and the right move is that he's trying to elevate the U.S. title for Raw and the Intercontinental title for SmackDown, and make those the belts for those.
More important.
And
again.
Lashley
Right.
is one of the main guys going for the U.S. title. And that's where I just disagree with you there. I think Lashley is a major player. I agree with you on Kofi, and my partner's being kind of quiet here right now, but he was not a Kofi fan.
Never was.
And he felt it was a huge mistake even putting the title on him.
I still feel that way.
And again,
And that
this
has
is the best thing
nothing to
about
do with
wrestling.
his
We can disagree
background.
and agree with each
It
other,
had
right?
nothing to do with his background. I just felt that
Right.
Kofi was overrated. I was not surprised that Vince McMahon, after he appeased the fans, because the fans were like, put the belt on this guy, and I'm scratching my head because I grew up in an era where, okay, not everybody was Hulk Hogan size, but my champion was Bob Backlund, who could in real life twist you into a pretzel. So I would
Right.
look at Kofi Kingston and I would go, no. So when Brock Lesnar came back and squashed him in 10 seconds, everybody else was shocked, and I was like, tell me what's not realistic about this situation. Because it is. That's how I looked at
and
that.
I totally agree.
He agrees.
My position is, if he doesn't deserve the belt, then why did you put it on him? If
Right.
he doesn't deserve to be on main
Right.
event level, then why would you put him there
Right.
just to appease the fans? Find a black wrestler who's qualified to be there and give
Like
it to him.
Bobby, like Lashley.
Yes.
Yeah, there you
Yes.
go. There you go.
So,
I agree.
last two questions, David. First, what was the most important championship win by a black wrestler?
Is it Ron? Because it's the first.
Yeah, got to be Ron Simmons. I think, winning that championship at a major federation, and I mean, all of the wrestlers in WCW came around him, white, black, everybody celebrated with Ron Simmons. And so, I mean, it's got to be him.
Have you had a chance to reach out to some of the black wrestlers that are still alive that would appreciate your hard work here? Have you had any feedback from anybody?
I have not, and that's something that I will probably do. I've been really, I was reluctant to do the whole thing, to just kind of further my brother's legacy is the only reason I even put this one out there. It hasn't really been something that I've kind of owned or taken that ownership myself, and I can see myself doing that, but at the time, I think it was just more therapeutic for me, dealing with losing him, and just trying to pay some tribute to him, but to my brother, that is. But yeah, I'll probably. I've gotten a lot of good feedback. I've been on several different shows, been interviewed by several people, including Vince Russo's show, and so which is actually pretty good. Him and Stevie Ray, and Stevie remembered that he remembered my brother from that appearance with Booker T on that show, and so. But yeah, I'll probably start reaching out a little more myself.
David, I want you to end the show with a tribute to your brother Julian and tell the fans out there what type of person Julian was and what he meant to you and your family.
Julian was my big brother. He was almost 2 years older than me. We grew up wrestling fans. He was just an ordinary fan who watched the sport, who loved watching it. And when one of his heroes, JYD, died and there was nothing on him, that's how much of a fan that he was. It touched him that much that he decided to write about the Black professional wrestlers. And the Black Stars book was, he researched and listed every Black wrestler, whether they held a title, whether they worked for an independent federation for 3 months. I mean, he tried to put everybody in there that he could to have something on them to celebrate them. That's the kind of person that he was. He was an author. He was a speaker, a phenomenal speaker. He spoke on college campuses, motivational speaker. He was a college professor. He was working on his doctorate degree in education. He was actually, his dissertation that he was working on was looking at the XFL. Right before he died, he was going to do his dissertation on that. And he was a person who was really committed to the African American community. He wanted to see us in a better light, and that's where the book came from. It wasn't racist, or it wasn't against any other race. It was just trying to praise his heritage, his race, and trying to uplift the people. And that's the kind of person my brother was.
David, Pro Wrestling's Black World Champions. Where can fans get the book?
It's probably best to get it from any of the online sites, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's I don't have a personal website set up for it yet. I'm going to work on that over the holidays and have my own site that people can go to. But right now, the online bookstores, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, those.
Well, we want to thank you for taking the time to join us. I wish it was under better circumstances. But one thing you might be able to put in your resume, you were the last guest of on Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. David, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be on the show.
God bless. We'll talk to you soon.
God bless you too. Thank you.
All right. Pretty cool, right?